Hey, this is Jody Denberg, and this is KUTX, and we're at home with Austin's Eliza Gilkyson, a multiple Austin Music Award winner, a Folk Alliance Award winner, two-time Grammy nominee, and the proud mama of a great new album called 2020. Eliza, it's good to see you. Where exactly are you in Austin and in your house?
I'm upstairs in my office. I wish I could show you the beautiful view out my window, my owl box and my little creek bottom. I just live in a funky little South Austin neighborhood, but we're on this wonderful green belt. We're just kind of in the Manchac, William Cannon area. And we have a little house, but we each have our own little office, and mine is upstairs. So that's where I am.
Your husband, Robert Jensen, is a retired professor at the university, and I miss seeing him at the Belo Center, so please give him my best.
I will. I know he always would tell me when he ran into you. It was always a pleasure. I know he was a real fixture on the campus, but when his hour was up, he was very happy to shift to the home office.
So it's just you and Robert quarantining at your home?
Yes, with some socially distant visits with my family. Yeah, but my Cisco has been come into the house because he's helped me set up my live streams set up in the garage. So there's a lot of sort of jostling for a space, in my little live stream space. But we both, they're very, very cautious and careful and using all the precautionary measures. And they've been at home as long as we have. So as have all my kids and my grandkids. So we are able to do some visiting. We can't do the hugs though.
I know that's one of the hardest parts of this. You mentioned your live stream, Eliza Live. That's on Friday nights on Facebook. You've had different themes. You've dived into your catalog. The first live stream, if I'm correct, you did the 2020 album. How are you feeling about those live stream performances?
There's a huge learning curve, and so it's a little nerve-wracking. You can't quite jump into your archetype, your persona, the familiar coat. You can't really put it on because you're dealing with things. You're looking out in my garage. I'm looking out at my husband sitting on the computer with his headphones on, or it's odd. But I ended up putting up lighting so that I'm looking into lights just to kind of remind myself that to go into that performance mode, because things go smoother when I step into that part of myself. It's so familiar to me. If I'm thinking too much, then it's more awkward. But I'm getting very comfortable with it. Nobody clapping and that kind of thing where it's sort of into this void. But hey, I had years working in bars where nobody clapped, so I know how to play for myself. But when people do these wonderful comments, the stream of comments that come up, you start to make this virtual connection, and it's working. I think for all of us, it's working. It's not the same. We don't have all the bells and whistles, and it's a lot of work to make it happen. But it sure beats the alternative, which is basically nothing.
My bells and whistles just went off. Um,
Oh.
and the album is called 2020. It was released on April 10th, right in the midst of this pandemic. You seem to see into the future on this new album, even though you couldn't have foreseen this when you were making the album.
But I've always been apocalyptic, as you know, sitting on your living room floor listening to Bob Dylan songs. I think I've always had this bent because I think I always knew unconsciously, subconsciously, I always knew that these systems weren't going to end well. I didn't know when. So I think if you look back through all my music, there's always one song on there that names what's coming. I never wanted to be heavy-handed with it because that's not often what people want to hear. But it's certainly what I write about with a song like The Great Correction. It's been on my mind for a long time. So with this record, I was really just focusing on the year being probably the most important election year of our lifetime. And so I wanted to do something to promote unity, to inspire the troops to get out to vote, to get active. And so, of course, that ties into the pandemic in some ways, because my writing is more about the emotional landscape of what we're going through right now. And so I think the pandemic fits into that emotional landscape, unfortunately, because we're all grieving. We get up every day and we grieve losses of human rights. We grieve losses of the natural world. There's so much we're going through, and then we gear ourselves up and we tune into each other and we have hopefulness, and so there's all these things we feel, rage at the machine, so I wanted to really write about the emotional terrain, and that applies to the pandemic as well.
But it's, I don't know if funny is the word, but I approached this record knowing where you were coming from before the pandemic, and I thought, this is going to be dark. This is kind of going to be a dark bummer record. But instead, there's these sing-along anthems built for singing together, which we can't really do right now. But was that in your mind? I want to make songs that people can coalesce around?
I think I have a tendency to address the things people. I think I'm a, what is the word, a contrarian. So a lot of times I was writing the darker stuff 10 years ago. I wrote Great Correction 10 years ago when we were in the Obama years. So when people were kind of comfortable and not worried about things as much. So, and I was at that point cautioning people because I could feel the hot breath of the future coming. And that was, to some people, what they would call, that's kind of a bummer. We're doing okay right now, but right now things are so bad that I don't really need to address the systems of power that are, have brought us here. What I need to do is make people feel safe enough to feel all the feelings and to continue to show up emotionally and politically, so to be able to do something. So I wanted to write inspirational stuff. Let's get together, let's sing together, let's march together, let's feel this, all these feelings, this rage. Let's conduct it in such a way as to move the ball forward right now. So, and to get everybody out to vote. So that's why I think this record has a sense of upbeatness. It's certainly embracing the dark side, but with a call to unity and inspiration.
I was definitely inspired by this album, which is called 2020 by our guest, Eliza Gilkyson. We have to watch out for those 20s, Eliza, because 2000 was a turning point for you as an artist. Your masterful album, Hard Times in Babylon. And again, it came out, right before 9/11, followed the next year. So there is this thing, I think, in you that has the subconscious comes through in your writing. And how do you let that happen when you're writing?
Well, I'm one of those people that kind of has to do that, because otherwise it's sort of a dry well. So I think when I teach songwriting, I just say, the inner editor, the inner critic is not allowed in the writing process. So you're just gonna, I just let whatever's going to come up. I have to go through a process of sitting with myself, and there's a sense of discomfort that comes with sitting with yourself and not eating or reading or watching a screen or whatever, all the things that we do to distract ourselves. In my case, it was often chocolate. But you kind of have to sit with yourself and go through a sense of discomfort to let those things come up from the unconscious or the subconscious. And so I've learned to do that. And often what comes up is, just the emotional field of whatever it is I'm going through. And sometimes that's just plain worry, because I'm worried, I'm concerned, and I'm grieving, and I'm pissed. So that's what's going to come up.
But celebration comes up as well. And I see you have your guitar behind you. On 2020, there are a couple of cover songs, but I thought it would be nice if you did one of the songs that you wrote, since we're talking about the process and the album. Are you comfortable grabbing your guitar and playing?
I am. I've got two guitars in here right now.
Oh,
I've got
okay.
this nice old Gibson here too. And I love the sound of this one. Well, I'll do this one that I wrote in a hotel room, since we're talking about just kind of sitting with yourself. This was the last one I wrote for the record when I was in a hotel room, and I was out with Richard Thompson. I can't remember, it was last October. I don't remember where I was when I wrote it, but it was the only one I wrote about myself. The rest of the record is sort of about what's going on out there. But I'll give it a try. It was when Australia was burning. I've been crying in the dark of night. I can't find my way to sleep. Thoughts and prayers will never make things right. I have promises to keep. I've been hoping there'll be some way through, and all our loved ones will be fine. No one knows what it'll come down to, so I'm just looking for a sign. On fire, on fire, on fire now. On fire, on fire, on fire now. I've been calling on my angel choir to put some wings upon my feet. Fill me up with inspiration's fire. Get me out into the street. On fire, on fire, on fire now. On fire, on fire, on fire now. I've been following the brightest star, letting my conscience be my guide. There's no road map gonna tell us where we are. The fire of love burns deep inside. I've been crying in the dark of night, with miles to go before I sleep. Thoughts and prayers will never make things right. I have promises to keep. I have promises to keep.
Thank you, Eliza.
Thank you, Jody. God, how long have we been doing this together? How many years?
I'm thinking about 35. and I'm game for another 35.
Yeah, I'm in.
That was Promises to Keep from Eliza Gilkyson's new album 2020. Eliza's with us from her home in South Austin. You moved to Austin, talking about years, I think about 1981, this became your primary home.
Mm-hmm.
You're from Los Angeles, from Hollywood, but you still spend some time in New Mexico as well?
Yes, we try to get them in the summers because I'm teaching these songwriter workshops, one with John Gorka, one with Mary Gaucher, and we do those out of got a big, wonderful old house that I bought years ago, and have been keeping it on VRBO and Airbnb to hang on to it, but it's really a fabulous place. And so we love going up there in the summer, and so that's what we're going to do. We're trying to figure out how to how to manage the trek and be safe. So that's sort of on our minds. And then I have to figure out how am I going to do all this virtual, all this technical stuff, live streaming and everything from up there. But I think we're going to make the move in the next couple of weeks.
You mentioned your songwriting workshops, and there's a couple of co-writes on this album with people from those workshops. Collaboration is not anything that you're have a problem with doing. And I was reading that early on, your dad, Terry, who, you know, was nominated for an Oscar for the Bare Necessities, that you sang on his demos when you were little?
I did. That was my first start. I was starting to develop myself as a singer and a writer at a pretty early age, 12 or 13 years old. And I think I was about 13 when this voice, it was like, whoa, I remember it just sort of came, and I had a voice. I remember even calling my dad, like, into the bedroom. I was like, listen, I can sing. And he of course downplayed it, as dad's parents from that generation often did. But so over time, and I had these little bands I put together, and I started doing my little folk singer thing. And my dad it was really a way to save him money. He would write demos. As a songwriter, what the writers would do in Hollywood was they would have singers come in and demo their songs for them, then they would pitch them to other artists. So he would let me demo his songs for him, and he'd take me into these great old studios in Hollywood, where the classic stuff was made, big, 24 inch, 2-inch reels, of 24 track studios. And those days, I don't even think they were 24, but anyway, I worked with some of the real early greats and with the big old mics and stuff. And he would let me have an hour of my own studio time if I would sing on his demos for him. So it was really nerve-wracking because you were always watching the clock. It was like, a sweating stress because you didn't want to go an hour over because it was like the budget, So we get in there and just ram it down, everything was live in those days too. So, but it was an incredible experience for me. I got in front of a mic very early.
There's these unwitting collaborations on the album where you cover the works of Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, Bob Dylan. Was your dad a contemporary of Woody Guthrie's?
They met many times when my dad moved to Hollywood. They were at parties. There were big Topanga Canyon parties, and my dad was there at them. But my dad was not a member of the Communist Party. He never, he was writing folk pop songs. So he was with the Weavers for a short spell, but I had a laugh with Pete Seeger about it years later, how, my dad was decidedly interested in making a living. And so he avoided politics. He really did. And for that reason, he was able to, get his songs out and have raise a family and keep the roof over the head. So that was important to him.
And in a full circle moment where you're being raised amongst Woody Guthrie and singing Pete Seeger songs and Bob Dylan songs on this record, Joan Baez has covered your songs. And I, just as a big fan of yours and Joan's, was so moved by that fact. Was it a surprise to you? Did you know she was going to do your songs?
No, I knew that they were being pitched by my agent, who is a friend of her manager. So I have to thank my agent for making that initial hookup, and Val Den did the hookup. And then I've learned that you don't get excited about something like that before it actually becomes a reality. And even if you hear that they're going to record it, it doesn't mean it's going to make the cut on the record. So I've learned to just kind of hum it along and not, keep it over here, but don't fixate on it. So when the record comes out and the song is on there, it's like somebody just shined a spotlight on you. And one of my folk idols, it's indescribable to have someone like that record 3 of my songs over 2 records. It's like, it's just because I've always been kind of under the radar. So whenever I get a little moment to come out and have a light shine on me, it always feels really good.
Well, as a listener, hearing your words come through Joan's voice, it's just such a treat. It's again, and again, an unwitting collaboration. But Okay, speaking of collaborations, your band is central to this album 2020. We should give them a little love before we sign off because this is a band record.
It is, and that was Cisco, my son, who has produced my last 3 records. He was the one who approached me about it. He just said, "Mom, I think that we should try this with a band this time. It's going to create a different kind of vibe." And I'm wary of that because I like to hash things out by myself, you know, to find things. And usually we've cut to click with me with the guitar and then built up from there, and that creates a different kind of vibe. And he was pretty sure about it, and I have found over the years working with Cisco, he is very often right. So I just went, okay, you know, let's do what you're thinking. So we went over to God, I can't remember the name of the studio, but it's the studio that Kelly and Bruce started years ago in North Austin. But we recorded it over there, and they had the best sounds. But also Cisco put together, you know, my favorite group of people. Of course, Mike Hardwick, who's played with me for 20 years now, and has been a big part of my sound. I think I can't say enough about Mike and the sound that I've made on my records. And touring, same thing. Mike is essential to that. He's a minimalist. He's a tone monster. He's a slide guitar, you know, god as far as I'm concerned. But he's unique. He finds parts. He's not a shredder, you know. And as much as he is a parts guy that finds the perfect thing. So he's really helped me develop what I would call my sound. So Mike's there. And then for years I worked with Glenn Fukunaga, and then he got so busy, and then I fell into the good graces of Chris Marsh, which I had no idea of who he was. And now I'm a huge fan. I mean, he's really world-class upright bass player. And so I've got Chris on there, and I've been working with Chris on the last 3 records as well. And then I've got Kim Warner on mandolin. Cisco plays the drums and sings with me. And then with a new addition this time, and Warren Hood on fiddle. He's played on my last 3 records, and we all know how great Warren is. Warren is unbelievable. He can sit between violin and fiddle, and he can go Cajun, and then he can go classic country, or he can go bluegrass, or he can play straight on violin with parts. You know, Warren can do anything. So to have Warren, I mean, these are all people that is right here in Austin. I can't say enough about them, but I will also say Bucka Allen was our new discovery on this record. And it was Mike's idea to bring in Bucka because they've been doing shows together. And Bucka was such a great energy to have on board. Filled with ideas and just up for anything. And you can really hear the stamp of I believe the whirly stuff on the record, the piano stuff, really, really fun, and help bring the spirit up in the studio.
It's a great album. It's called 2020, and it's new from Eliza Gilkyson. And 2020, we knew it was going to be a big year. And some positive things are happening. You're going to celebrate your 70th birthday later this year, and I look forward to celebrating with you in one way or another.
Oh, and that would be great if we could actually have a real-time party.
I'm kind of counting on it. Yeah. And we were supposed to be together at the Cactus Cafe this month, and obviously that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so before we say goodbye, I'm just curious, and this is a little personal, but as a musician, you make your living on the road, from playing for audiences, from selling merchandise. So what are you personally thinking about the future of this year to get 2020 heard?
I'm going to be counting on word of mouth and people like you. I've got to get the word out there, and the vehicles are limited. So I do have a record label that's really working hard to make those connections. I do have a promotional people at the label. I have a radio person, Brad Hunt, who I'm sure you've worked with before, and then Angie Carlson at my label. And we are doing what we can. We're going to make some videos, but it's not easy to make videos right now. So we're putting our heads together around that right now. And then I'm going to keep doing the live stream stuff and hope that we can really expand that. So those are my vehicles right now, and it's hard. It's hard.
Well, the good part is you have a wonderful album to share with people, and I'm not giving a sales pitch. I'm just someone that likes to share music, and I love Eliza's new album, 2020, so I recommend it to everyone. And Eliza will have that party for your 70th, and we'll hug, and in the meanwhile, we'll say goodbye as you hug.
Pearl.
All right.
It's Pearl.
Bye, Pearl. Bye,
Love
Eliza.
you.
Love
Thank you
you.
so much. Love to everybody at the station too. Miss you guys. I'm sorry we're not in person.
We'll make it good next time.
We will. See you soon. Love to everybody. Love to
Bye for
Barb.
now.
Bye.